CRM, CDP, DMP, DSP, SSP, ESP, ETL, data lake, data warehouse, data marts. I promise I'm not having a stroke. I'm not making this verbiage up. This is the marketing technology stack, and it's only part of it. It can be very intimidating with all the acronyms and all the jargon and not knowing what goes where and how it fits together, but it doesn't have to be that intimidating, especially if you have somebody like me who understands it to walk you through it. So today we're going to look at the marketing tech stack, specifically the marketing data infrastructure technology stack. And I'm going to walk you through how all these pieces fit together and what all those acronyms and all that jargon means. This video, again, is about your marketing technology stack, your MarTech stack. Specifically though, we're looking at the data infrastructure pieces. So your marketing data infrastructure technology stack. We're gonna look at this at a high level. We're not gonna dig deep into every single, what's the best CRM to use, how do you use a DMP, things like that. This is really to help understand at a high level how all these pieces fit together and what some of the acronyms mean, what some of the jargon means, so that you have a cursory understanding, so then you can dig deeper in another video or in some other way of learning about the different tools that compose the marketing tech stack. So let's take a look at the advertising layer of your marketing tech stack. The advertising layer includes your search, display, your programmatic tools for advertising, your ESP, your email service provider, SMM, which is social media management, so both the actual platforms themselves and then performance and listening tools. Now, on your search, display, programmatic, on the programmatic side, you have your SSPs, your DSPs, SSP being your supply side platform, DSP being your demand side platform of an ad exchange. Examples of your DSPs, your Adobe Advertising Cloud or AdRoll. Going back to your ESPs, your email service provider, you'll have HubSpot, MailChimp, Constant Contact, and then again your social tools. So your advertising layer is just collecting data from all these advertising tools that you're going to then send to other parts of your marketing tech stack to store it, save it, use it for later. So then after your advertising layer, you have your clickstream layer. I like to divide the clickstream layer into two different parts, your traditional and your non-traditional clickstream. So when you're talking about the traditional clickstream layer, here we're talking about what users are doing when they're interacting with your digital assets, your web, your mobile, whatever your product is. That's what we're tracking here. The non-traditional stuff that maybe lives outside of, but still is included in that kind of clickstream way of thinking, or sits on top of, and I'll get into that specifically to kind of break that down. But the idea here is the clickstream data, unlike your advertising data, you have more control over it. So your advertising data, it's third-party tools. It's very on the periphery of your control. It's on the outside of the top layer, whereas your clickstream data is more of your website, your tools, things that you have that you can then control a little bit more. When you have your advertising layer, it's your external outside layer. Here, we're talking more about what you have control over, the actual user behavior, and that you're tracking on your digital assets. And so again, with your web, mobile app, and product data, you're talking about like Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, Mixpanel, Amplitude, those kinds of tools. Session recording heat maps is more of the visual aspect of the user behavior. And so you're looking at Crazy Egg, ClickTail, Hotjar, Mouseflow, and then of course you have your e-commerce systems, which is going to have your transactional data and your cart data. So that's the traditional clickstream layer of your marketing tech stack. So talking about the non-traditional aspect of the clickstream data that goes in your marketing tech stack. Here, all we're talking about, again, is stuff that isn't necessarily in your web, in your mobile, in your product, right? It's sitting on top of or outside of. So outside of can be your voice of consumer data, the surveys. So your SurveyMonkey, your Qualtrics, that's still considered clickstream data, even though there's no clicking going on. You also have your personalization A/B tools like Google Optimize, which is being sunset, Adobe Target, VWO, those sit on top of your site, on top of the experience, or to provide a new experience. And then you have tag management systems, which are very vital, and those manage the code that you need to be able to send the clickstream data to the rest of your tech stack. So Google Tag Manager, Adobe Launch, that's what I mean when I say the non-traditional clickstream layer. So those two layers, those three layers, depending on how you're looking at it, but your advertising layer and your clickstream layer, your non-traditional and your traditional clickstream layer, those layers are collecting data. Now, what are we going to do with that? We're going to process the data and we're going to store it. So first we're going to look at the back office, then data processing, then data storage. So the back office layer of your marketing tech stack is a layer where you have applications for processing and storing data for specific applications. You have your customer data platform, your customer relationship management system, and your data management platform. Those acronyms are CDPs, CRMs, and DMPs. Often get confused. Basically, a CDP is looking at aggregate group data, and it's looking for audiences that you can use with other tools, so like integration, usually analytical tools. Whereas a DMP, which is also looking at aggregate group data, is looking at audiences for activation, so personalization, programmatic, advertising, retargeting, those kinds of services. CDPs also do a little bit of data transport, kind of like tag management, but they do two-way. And they're not purpose-built like tag management, but they can do some of that. Now, CRM is different because it's looking at individual or account data. It's more sales-oriented. So that's your back office layer of the marketing tech stack. Again, the back office layer has a little bit of data processing built in, but it isn't necessarily a dedicated data processing layer. You have a dedicated data processing layer that's a little different, and that's more for taking data, putting it into storage, and processing it in a kind of a heavier way than your back office. Your back office, again, is kind of like data processing, like data storage for specific applications, whether it's activation, whether it's analysis, whether it's integrating with other tools. That's what you're looking at with your back office. So let's talk data processing in your marketing tech stack. So the data processing layer is going to include transporting data, transforming data, cleaning, scrubbing, that kind of functionality. So tools that help you do that. So on the transporting side, you'll have data connectors, data pipelines, anything that helps you do something called ETL, which is extract, transform, and load. That's what you're doing to data when you're trying to get it into storage, right? So when you're transforming, you might be transforming the format, you might be compressing it, you might be encrypting it, decrypting it, mapping it to other data, joining it to other data. When you're cleaning it, you might be removing duplicates, filtering out outliers, removing invalid entries. So all of that needs to happen usually before you store it. When we talk about data storage, I'll talk about an exception to that rule. So once you process it, now you're going to store it. Again, a little different than the back office layer because now we're talking about long-term storage, bulk storage, using it at an enterprise level usually. The back office layers is much more small, mid-sized business. Large businesses can use it, but you're looking at plug and play with smaller tools. Where you're talking about the data storage, you're talking about more traditional tools. You're talking about you have a whole IT team to kind of work with it. You have data engineers, and so it's a little different. The data storage layer is going to include things like your data warehouses, your data lakes, your data marts, right? Now your data warehouses and your data lakes, they're very similar. They're bulk long-term storage. Now the difference here is that a data warehouse is kind of like a garage that you've organized a certain way. You know what you're going to need to take, and you know when you're going to need it, or not necessarily when, but how you're going to need to retrieve it. So the point there is you know the question that's going to be asked, so that you can go and get the data because you've already organized it. Data lakes, you don't want to organize it up front because you don't know the questions that's going to be asked, and so it might be more work to try to retrieve it if you do it that way. A data mart is just smaller than a data warehouse. It's contextualized. It's like a small store in a neighborhood. So think of it as like a department. Sales data out of your data warehouse, marketing data out of your data warehouse, finance data out of your data warehouse. More specific, contextualized, smaller piece of your data warehouse. Okay, so now you've processed your data, you've stored your data, whether it's in data storage, like legitimate long-term bulk data storage, or you've got it in some back office system. Either way, now you need to do something with it. And generally, that's going to be one of two things. You're going to analyze it or you're going to activate it. So the difference here is analysis is looking at the data to try to figure something out, answer some questions. Activation, you're not necessarily trying to answer any questions, you're just trying to do something. So are you looking for insights or are you looking for action? That's going to be the difference between the two. So let's talk the analysis layer of your marketing tech stack. So the analysis layer includes things like reporting, data visualization, attribution modeling, and statistics predictive modeling. So when you're looking at reporting and data visualization, you're basically describing what happened. Usually you're talking to leadership, managerial people, and you're just trying to figure out what happened this last quarter, what happened with this campaign, what happened when we did X, Y, and Z. Your attribution modeling is going a little deeper and modeling why that happened. What do you attribute it to? What impacted it, right? And your statistic predictive modeling is looking at what will happen. So any tools that help you do that are part of your analysis layer of your marketing tech stack. Now, on the other hand, when you want to do something with your data, you're going to look at your activation layer. Again, your analysis layer, we're trying to answer specific questions. Your activation layer, on the other hand, we're going to do something with the data. So the activation layer of your marketing tech stack is where you put your data to work. Specifically, we're looking at personalization, programmatic, retargeting, using that data to then go and change the experience, or using that data to then go and target a specific audience. Generally, we're looking at audience data. So this is where your DMP is going to come from, your data management platform. This is where we put it to use. Also, we could use a CDP where we're going to do something called reverse ETL. Same thing as ETL, except now we are retrieving the data from storage rather than putting in. So we're doing the opposite of what we would do when we were storing it, which is ETL. So reverse ETL is just the opposite of ETL. And usually in marketing, we'll use a CDP to do that. So those are the different layers of the marketing tech stack, specifically the different layers of the marketing data infrastructure tech stack, because there are some pieces, actually there's a lot of other marketing technology that don't fit into these specific layers, these specific pieces. Right now we're just looking at data infrastructure. Going back, just to kind of refresh your memory, I started off listing all these acronyms: CRM, CDP, DMP, DSP, SSP, ESP, ETL, and it just sounds crazy. But now we can kind of, and I don't expect you to remember this right off the bat the very first time, but we can go through them and it should feel a little more familiar and a little less daunting. So your CRM is part of your back office layer. It's your customer relationship management system. You're looking with the CRM at usually individual or account level data, right? Or your CDP, on the other hand, which is also part of your back office layer, your CDP, you're looking at aggregate data, group data, and usually you're using it for integration with different other marketing tools, or you're using it for analysis, so it's storing it and sending it somewhere for analysis. Now, if you need activation, you're generally going to be using the DMP, which is another piece of your back office layer. And that DMP is your data management platform. Okay, so CRM, CDP, DMP, not that scary anymore, I hope, if I've done my job. Now, on the DSP, SSP side, it's the advertising layer. We're talking about demand side platform, supply side platform. Not going to get too much into ad exchanges, but just remember, demand side, you're buying; supply side, you're selling. Two sides of one coin, okay? Now, ESP, email service provider, probably the easiest one out of that list. And finally, ETL was extract, transform, load. It's part of what you're doing in the data processing layer, right? Your data lake, data warehouse, data mart, all part of the data storage layer. A little less scary. Hopefully you understand a little bit of the difference between data lake and data warehouse. Data warehouse, it's organized on the way in. It's formatted, processed on the way in. Data lake is formatted, processed on the way out. And your data mart. Your data mart is data storage that's contextualized. It's a subset of the data warehouse. Again, hopefully it's a little less daunting, and I hope that I've helped you understand how all these pieces fit together and what some of these things mean.